no lizards, no aliens, no nonsense. This is Reality Bites in association with Sovereign Independent UK and One World Chronicle.
The top-ranking Nazis did not die, went on to become the head of the Bilderberg Foundation. The bosses of IB Farben and Siemens and all these other companies, they were not put up against the wall. They were not hung after trials at Nuremberg. The ones they took out at Nuremberg were regularly just, middle-level Nazis that they could dispose of. All the rest, the ones that were really useful in terms of their scientific ability, were brought to the United States under Operation Paperclip to create NASA, to create the CIA. This is the great cruel irony of history, that while we die, the ones who caused the wars only just move around and get new jobs.
Welcome back to Reality Bites Radio. We were talking there just off the break there, and I was saying to Thomas, who explained earlier he was in punk bands and stuff himself, and I was saying that as far as I can really remember, the punk thing, which was my generation, I was too young when the first Sex Pistols thing came around, but I saw them later on. But I was thinking that was the last real revolution by the youth, because like since then youth have just been I suppose they've been given this cultural mix of just rubbish for the last 30 years, I suppose, and they really have no culture of their own. It keeps changing every couple of years, and as far as I was aware, when the punk thing happened, it was like everybody thought they could do anything. Everybody had a belief that it doesn't matter if we're poor, we can still pick up a guitar and play 3 chords and whatever. And a lot of people ended up just working for themselves at that time, because there were no jobs anyway, so you had no choice. But it did tend to inspire a lot of people to get in bands or whatever, or to do other artistic things. And what would you say to that, Thomas? Do you think it was the last revolution, or do you think there'll be another one?
Well, it really began with the mod movement in the early mid-60s. That's where it really began, because that was the first movement in these islands where working class people had completely rejected, without actually any influence. There had been, there was influence from Italian films and, Tamil and Motown, but something new. It didn't come from American TV. It was a brand new thing. And it started in the 1960s with the mod movement. That was, bands like The Who and the Small Faces. They were really the first of them. That was where it began, the first do-it-yourself youth culture on these islands. And that sort of migrated into later on the skinhead movement, the ska movement. That became the punk movement. And I disagree that it ended with the punk movement. I think that the Manchester scene was a revival of that in a way, and so was some of the dance music scenes in England as well. That was also part of it. But since the late 80s, early 90s, there's been absolute nothing. It's been a wasteland. So that's absolutely true. But it's not dead, because we are the punks. This movement, this alternative scene, with this, do-it-yourself radio stations, publishing books, talks, meetings, get-togethers. We are the punks. We are holding that together. When people ask me, when did you stop being a punk? I says, I'm more a punk now than I've ever been. I'm still a punk, but I just do it through writing books about psychopaths and going after the globalists this way. This is how I do it now. I don't do it with a guitar anymore, but I'm still doing it, and I'll always do it, and I'll be doing it until they put the box on me. And that's just how it's going to be. And I'm sure you feel the same. And we don't see ourselves in this way enough, but that's exactly what we are. There's a new book coming out. A couple of guys, friends of mine in Manchester, Pete Wilkie and Grom Malinsky, they're putting a book together called The Way We Were. And what they're going to do is interview people from, the Stamont scene up. There's people like Kenny Jones from the Small Faces and The Who. There's Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols. And there's myself and a few others. And it's just to drive home the idea that what began with the mod movement still exists today. It's just not in music. The punks are still alive. The ska skinheads are still alive. We're still here, but the Northern Soul folks are still alive. But we're doing it. we're doing it through this scene now. And we, with do-it-yourself, publishing, do-it-yourself radio, do-it-yourself this, that, and the other, we have the spirit of punk still in us. And we should always know this and be always proud of that, because we're holding it together in a different way. The music scene is dead. Now, I'm not talking about there's still great bands and everything, I'm sure, come up. But the days of when music meant something in people's lives has been destroyed by the globalists. And so I see what I do as back exactly the same thing as what I started out doing when I had my first guitar when I was 15 in Ballymun, the north side of Dublin. It's no different. I'm just doing it in a different way, and a different way of doing it, but it's still the same thing. I'm questioning authority, I'm attacking the system, and I'm giving it to the man in whatever way I can. I may not be young anymore, I may not be, but I still have that sort of fire in me. I still have that youth rebellion in me. It's just stuck in the body of a middle-aged man, and they'll never take that from me, and they'll never take it from you, and they'll never take it from any of us who actually feel that we know the world is wrong, we know it's being run by lunatics, and we're always going to say, look, you can't do this anymore. Now, we're always going to be co-opted by, McLarens that will be in our own scene and people like that. But we're doing it. We're slowly getting there. I saw the psychopath issue move into the mainstream, and that's because it started out in the alternative scene first, and other things will do that too. And so that's why what we do is much more important than we realize. What we're doing now, we may not see the benefits of it in our own lifetime, but I can guarantee you that we've set something in motion that they're never going to be able to shut down, and it'll always be one step ahead of them, because they cannot control the alternative media, for the simple reason is that people like me, yourself, and others in this, we're not a member of any official structure. We're all independent artists doing our own thing, and that's just like it was in the punk rock days when you had all these numerous record labels. It's the same thing with the alternative scene today. We're still rattling them, we're still giving them a hard time, we're still doing it in a makeshift, three chords and the truth kind of way. And, it's a great thing. It's a great thing to be a part of. And we should cherish the fact that we're doing it. And, although it seems dark and painful at times and hopeless, remember that we're actually fighting for something that's really huge. To get back to the analogy at the beginning of the show, we're the ones who are pulling society away from the brushstrokes on that painting and pulling them back away from the detail so they can see the painting in full. Not everyone is going to see it, but just enough will see it, where the actual control system will have to change. It's like when Johnny Rotten said at the very last date of the Sex Pistols tour, which I mentioned in the Anthem of the Psyche, "Have you ever had the feeling you've been had?" He was saying that to himself. He was saying that to himself when he'd realized that the Pistols had been taken over by the system. Well, we have to make sure that that message is said to everyone else, that they all know that they've all been had.